Good morning and welcome to the Standing Committee's meeting for Wednesday, February 19th, 2025. All council meetings will be live streamed on the city's website, and for guest speakers joining us at the table, please do not turn your microphones off. Our first order of business is roll call. Will the clerk please take the roll?
Mr. Charland.
Here.
Mr. Coghill. Ms. Gross. Mr. Lavelle.
Here.
Mr. Mosley.
Here.
Mrs. Kale-Smith. Mrs. Warwick. Mr. Wilson.
Here.
Mrs. Strasburger, Chair.
Here.
5 members present.
Thank you. Our next order of business is public comment. I would like to remind all speakers that the rules of council state that comments are limited to matters of concern, official action, or deliberation which are or may be before City Council. Profanity will not be permitted. Please state your name and neighborhood for the record. You will have 3 minutes to speak. Our first registered speaker is Azacia Menafield. Is Azacia Menafield with us? Okay, we will return back to you if you join us online later. Our next registered speaker is Ikahana Helmakina. You are still muted, and we cannot hear you.
Greetings and good day. My title is Chief Ikahana Helmakina. I am the Grand Inca of the Iroquois Confederacy of Aboriginal American People. And I wanted us to think today about the history that we're celebrating in this month of February, also known as Black History Month. In my opinion, it should be renamed just plain old American History Month. True American History Month. We have been teaching our children. I want to highlight a great person in history who has, by the name of Garrett Morgan, Sr., who created the traffic signal in 1923, simply created to mitigate accidents on the road, to improve safety on the road. However, his invention has been morphed into a cash cow for municipalities across this country and beyond. I'm pretty sure Morgan didn't create this for someone to gain financial gains and oppress people with this technology. In researching Garrett Morgan, mixing his name together, I also discovered that he also created the smoke detector, a device that we use today. He also founded a newspaper in Cleveland called the Cleveland Call. He also, in 1907, opened his own sewing machine machine repair store to go on to employ 32 people in 1907, just a few short years after slavery ended, allegedly. In 1907, without that 40 acres and a mule, this wonderful man was able to somehow create generational wealth for his family. My question to you today, City Council, is the narrative of slavery, how it affects our children, to start their history from a place of such lowness, you have nothing to be proud of. I don't know what you can expect out of a child who's taught that their history started with slavery. If slavery had a start, it also had an end. So what was the history of these people, these so-called African Americans, prior to being enslaved? Why do we not think about history from that perspective and teaching children about the greatness to which they come from? I'm afraid that
Thank you very much. There being no further registered speakers, we will now take comments from those in the audience wishing to speak. Are there any speakers wishing to come to the podium?
Good morning. My name is Yvonne F. Brown. I live at 715 Mercer Street. That's at the top of the hill. That's the Bedford, at the top of Bedford, that high rise. First today, I need to get my mind a little bit calm. But I wanted to ask Mr. Lavelle, the last time, I didn't come yesterday, but last week when you made a statement about you would make the person standing at the podium to step down. You made some kind of statement. I didn't catch it all. But I realized what it was, is Dr. Miller was saying that the people were leaving and all the noise, and he's talking about the noise that they're making. And you took it as that he was wrong. No, he's not wrong. You as the president should stop, or you acting as the president, should stop the people while we're at the podium. Or you could even tell them, please be quiet. We have someone speaking. Please. But you just let him, and then you take, and when he says something, you take it out against him. I want to tell you this. I came down today, up in Kaylee Irvis. We have a terroristic, you got our president talk about the terrorists. We have a domestic terrorist. Her mother lives in the building. Her name is Rashida McKinley. She is harassing me. She's threatened me. Her mother's just recently threatened me. When I went to the manager, I said, fair warning, I am in clear and present danger. I'm being threatened, and she's saying things to me. Well, the manager with her big breasts put them up in the air and says, oh, she don't talk to me like that. Well, I left confused, concerned, and scared. Now, it's been recently that same woman, Rashida McKinley, they heard a commotion in the manager's office. She said, what did you say to my mother? And when they went there, the citizens say she had the manager by her neck. Well, they heard the commotion. They tried to get in. When they did get in, the manager had threw her down and was on top of her, and she was hollering, get off of me. She says, I didn't hit her. I just threw her down. Now, Rashida has beat a mother and father with a mother and daughter with a hammer, and her mother paid the rent to keep them from complaining. She just beat a man that has cancer all in his head, took a stick and ran and beat him in the head. What I'm saying, when I went to the manager, I said, she's saying things to me and threatening me. She says, oh, she's just trying to intimidate you, Miss Brown. My problem, or my question is, how is she allowed on the property? They have a no trespass sign. I called the police. She's in the building. She's wrapping her head around with glasses, sunglasses. So they say they can't say who she is. But she made sure. When I looked, I said, she said, yes, it's me. Go tell your daughter I'm in the building. Please protect us.
Thank you, Ms. Brown. Next speaker, please.
Good morning, Special Agent Sunshine. I return to sender any voodoo hexes, curses sent towards me 100 million, billion, trillion googolplex. And whoever is sending the Lord, throw them into a lake of fire in Jesus' name. Whoever has power of attorney over me for whatever reason, like how? And I don't know about it. Whoever signed off on that, you're under judgment by the Most High. If you think he don't know who you are and where you are at all times, he does. Whoever has me in a false marriage, like really, and I don't know about it, whoever signed off on that, whoever you are that has me in this marriage, like really, it's a no. I'm not married. I'm single, celibate, and saved. Amen. Who my real mother is, we still don't know. But whoever you are, you're under judgment as well. It's TikTok for your life. Whatever you have that belongs to me, you need to give it to me. Whoever has anything that belongs to me needs to give it to me. If I'm the problem, give me what belongs to me so that I can go on with my life. Because I do not want to be in this town. It's too many demons. I can't even pray. There's a problem everywhere I go to pray. Imagine that. It's amazing. Port Authority manager, please. How are you sending these drivers out and they don't know where their stops are? The rail shuttle service has only 3 stops. How do these drivers still not know what they are? That's ridiculous. I've literally had to get out in the street to stop this bus so that I could get on it. Make it make sense. Whoever's trying to get me arrested, like really, I'm not a criminal. I'm not out here committing any crimes. Obviously, you don't want me here. So why can't I have what belongs to me so that I can go? Why are you holding me hostage? Because you had me in some type of partnership with my name on it, and you want half. Really? You can have it. Give me what belongs to me so I can go, because I don't want to be here. And you think you can hold me hostage, it's TikTok for your life to end, because that separation is going to be fatal. I promise you. I'm determined to be a blessing somehow, some way. I will not stop trying to be a blessing. Here's some wisdom. Proverbs 14:30 says, "A sound heart is the life of the flesh, but envy the rottenness of bones." Right, Lavelle? Envy. Really? How jealous do you have to be of somebody? How much envy do you have to have in your heart to get a sex change to steal from them? This is our government, America. They still change your identity. They steal your inheritance, whatever has your name on it. They take it because of their position. I'm going to keep praying for you. Lord, have mercy on their soul. Forgive them. In Jesus' name.
Next speaker, please. Next speaker, please. There being no further speakers, we will now move on to the Standing Committee's agenda. Our first committee is the Finance and Law Committee. New Papers 1489.
Bill 1489, resolution authorizing the issuance of a warrant in favor of James E. DePasquale for plaintiff counsel fees and costs in connection with a litigation matter in the United States District Court for the Western District of Pennsylvania for an amount not to exceed $123,873.76.
Motion to approve.
Second.
Discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor of Bill 1489, please indicate by saying aye.
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 Opposed? Abstentions? Affirmative recommendation. Bill 1490.
Bill 1490, resolution authorizing the issuance of a warrant in favor of Spillman, Thomas & Battle, PLLC, for expert legal services in connection with a litigation matter in the United States District Court for the Western District of Pennsylvania for an amount not to exceed $26,406.04 over 1 year.
Motion to approve.
Discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor of Bill 1490, please indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Affirmative recommendation. Bill 1491.
Bill 1491, resolution amending resolution number 857 of 2023, effective December 27th, 2023, entitled Resolution Adopting and Approving the 2024 Capital Budget, the proposed 2024 Community Development Program, and the 2024 through 2029 Capital Improvement Program by increasing street resurfacing by $45,000 to account for the payment for a surety bond made to the city of Pittsburgh.
Motion to approve.
Do we have a second? Second. Discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor of Bill 1491, please indicate by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? Abstentions? Affirmative recommendation. Bill 1492.
Bill 1492, resolution authorizing the issuance of a warrant payable in favor of Unisolutions, Inc. for 1-year subscription in an amount not to exceed $18,500.
Motion to approve.
Second.
Discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor of Bill 1492, please indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Abstentions? Affirmative recommendation. Bill 1493.
Bill 1493, resolution to authorize and direct the incurring of non-electoral debt through the issuance of a series of general obligation bonds of the city of Pittsburgh in the maximum aggregate principal amount of $67,550,000.
Motion to approve discussion.
Second.
With discussion, Councilman Wilson.
Yeah, if we could have our guests come to the table. I'd like to speak to the Bill 1493.
Okay, yeah, right. No, okay.
Good morning. Good morning.
And should we hand out the books? And your capital. Do you want to get those capital? Okay.
Good morning, everyone. Jen Gula, Finance Director and City Treasurer, and I'll let my guests introduce themselves.
Sure. David Hutchinson, Assistant Director for Capital and Asset Management.
Matthew Stuzinski, Co-Municipal Advisor, MAS Financial Advisory Services.
And Kyle Laux with Davenport & Company, Co-Financial Advisor with Matt.
All right, thank you. And could you give us a rundown of what we're looking at here?
Sure. So this is basically the next step of your capital budgeting process. So at the end of last year, you passed a capital budget and a 6-year plan, if I'm not mistaken. And amongst those items in the capital budget are funding sources that fund the projects listed in the budget. And we are here discussing the bond monies that we intend to take out in order to fund that portion of the budget.
And this will fund all the capital projects, and does it fund anything else other than capital projects?
It does not.
Okay.
And the projects are specifically laid out in the budget. I also do have a list of them if you would so like it a list.
Okay. Anything significantly different this year than last in our process?
From a capital perspective, no. These are pretty standard uses. This is entirely using DPW. It's going to be used by DPW and DOMI. So about 33 million is going to DPW for facilities projects, public safety facilities, the firing range, things like that. And then 29 million is going to DOMI for things like street paving and match on some of our larger federal grants, like the TIP program with Federal Highway and PennDOT.
Mm-hmm. And I've heard that the way we're looking for buyers on the bond is somewhat different this year.
It is. Good morning. Good to see you all again. The history of the city and the debt issuance has been through what's referred to as a negotiated sale, wherein the city administration goes out for an RFP at some point and then chooses from those candidates that submitted RFPs an underwriting syndicate. And we choose a lead underwriter and co-managers to participate in the sale. We've been looking for an opportunity to do a slightly different method of sale, which is referred to as a competitive sale, where we don't select the underwriting syndicate up front and we send out a notice of sale to broker-dealers throughout the country, and we allow them to all bid on the bonds. And we've been looking for a window to do so. The city has not done a competitive sale, to my knowledge, in maybe 30 years. We've been looking for an opportunity wherein we've been far enough away from Act 47 that people no longer see that as compromising the city in terms of any type of we'll call it noise we'll think about in terms of giving them an obstacle to submit a bid, and the financials of the city look outstanding, so we thought this is the right year to attempt a competitive bid. We would tell you that throughout the country, competitive bid is very popular. As a matter of fact, Pittsburgh Schools does a competitive bid. Cincinnati, Baltimore, places like that are comparable peers to City of Pittsburgh do competitive bids on a regular basis and typically receive 10 to maybe 20 bids when they ask for notice of, by way of a notice of sale, they ask for bids. So we are very excited to try this method, and we'll see how it performs. We certainly expect excellent performance in terms of bids submitted. The city typically has been received very well by the investor community, and we expect them to submit bids through the broker-dealer of their choice, and we're hoping for a good execution on the sale date.
What's the risk?
The risk is you choose a date and there's some disruption in the marketplace. So as an example, if there were some type of noise in the world that war breaks out, I've seen that happen, you can always delay the sale and then do it at a later date. So it's a timing risk more than anything else. There's a risk that no one would bid. We don't think that's a reasonable risk. But it more is probably geopolitics or our national politics that could create a risk in terms of the marketplace. We don't see that as being the case typically.
Okay. And then you mentioned that this hasn't been done for quite a few decades. Any reason why we were going down that path to begin with, do you think?
I don't know the history beyond 5, 6, 7 years ago. It had been the tradition of the city to use a negotiated sale. I can't speak to decades ago why it wasn't done. It is certainly promoted by the Securities and Exchange Commission that highly rated, which you are, general obligation bonds be considered for a competitive sale. And we're looking for as an opportunity to do this for the first time. Just don't know the history of why it hasn't been done previously. But of course, during Act 47, you're not likely to get a lot of participation by competitive bids. There's just too much research and due diligence that's required by the broker-dealer. And keep in mind, they have a lot of bonds to bid on or invest in across the entire country. So if there's noise regarding and noise I mean some type of story to the sale, they are likely to skip it. We just think we're in a very healthy environment in terms of where the city currently sits financially, its debt profile, its performance, financial performance, looks to be aligned very well for the timing to proceed with a competitive sale.
Okay. And what's the benefit? I imagine there's some savings here.
You don't know till the sale's over, right? But the benefit being that you're allowing all brokers to bid on the bonds, and that provides we'll call it a healthy competition, hence the word competitive sale. It provides a competition for those who are not part of the underwriting syndicate to purchase the bonds and we'll call it, pass it along to their investors. Now, typically, the city does have 40 to 50 investors in a bond sale. We'd expect those same investors to show up on a competitive sale as well, but they'll choose who they want to submit their orders to, and those broker-dealers. And we think that that's a healthy way to compete for the bonds as an alternative to the negotiated sale. We'll find out the performance of the execution of it, but it's a good reset that all broker-dealers, and to some degree it's a quasi-RFP, if you will, that you see with actuality what broker-dealers show up and compete hard for your bonds.
All right, thanks.
You're welcome.
Any further discussion? Councilman Coghill.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Thank you for being here, Matt.
Oh, my pleasure.
The rest of you as well. So the idea of a competitive sale is to get a better interest rate.
That's our goal, most certainly.
Right.
Most certainly.
Right. And what is the amount that we're taking out?
So we're going to issue bonds that will fund a project fund of $62,610,911, not a dollar more than that, except to cover cost of issuance. So you'll note in the resolution the par amount is higher. We do have to allow for some cushion, if you will, because we are setting a preliminary parameters ordinance or parameters to each maturity by way of the Local Government Unit Debt Act. We have to set a maximum par amount, a maximum coupon or interest rate, and a maximum annual debt service in the legislation. So we do provide for some cushion in the par amount of each maturity, which artificially elevates the number in the debt resolution. We've done this every year and it's been going on for every issuance of debt. We will not, however, on the day of sale, issue again more than $1 necessary to fund $62,610,911 and the cost of issuance. We'll get to the exact amount.
Gotcha. So it's funny because you say $62 million. That's the amount, which I don't think you were involved in this bond that we took out for affordable housing. 62 million was with the interest. I think we had $30 million on the principal, and we're paying $32 million in interest over 25 years. Your firm didn't do that.
That's
No.
correct. We are not
I
involved in
thought so.
that.
I thought so. So, am I to assume we're going to get a rate around that same? Is that kind of the going rate? So if we paid $32 million on $30 million, are we to assume we're going to pay, $62 million in interest on this bond? Just, or is the competitive bidding process going to bring that way down?
You'll still pay interest on $62 million worth over 20 years. If you look at the history of the city's debt, over the last 8-9 years, the city, and I'm looking at page 3 of the booklet, if you don't mind referring to that, to the booklet. You know, the city has issued debt as rates have come down. The current interest rate environment for municipal debt over 45 years, we're still capturing one of the lowest interest rate environments we've seen in 45 years. That has shown well and performed well for the city's debt issuance, especially over the last 6 or 7 years where we went through the artificially low interest rates due to COVID. So if you went back and looked at the history of the last 6 or 7 debt issuances, they would all have been under 4%. In some cases, they were in the 2%, 2.5%. So very attractive interest rate. No doubt, with any tax-exempt municipal bond, you're going to pay interest on the outstanding debt.
Right.
The good news about the city's debt portfolio is in as much as if you looked at, we're going to issue $62 million, the city's going to actually pay off $55 million worth of bonds in 2025 and again in 2026. So the net impact of new debt in this year and next year is actually quite small on an incremental basis. And your debt profile is still very healthy from the perspective of your outstanding peers that we look to as far as comparable size and comparable socio-demographic profile. So it's your debt profile does look very attractive over the next couple of years. And I point out that in this chart we also, and we've talked about this over the course of the last couple of years, we are getting closer to the debt cliff where the annual debt service drops off dramatically from 2026 to 2027.
I know we keep talking about that,
do.
and I know everybody kind of hangs their hat on that. Oh, the 2 years, the debt ceiling's coming down. Oh, yeah, that sounds good. Unless we run up enough debt to where, which I feel like in certain ways we are on our way to doing that. The $30 million loan that we're paying $62 million on, this that we're going to pay. So I'm not asking for short numbers here. $62 million is for the capital projects that we already approved and everything. I get that.
Yep.
So I'm to assume we're going to probably pay $62 million in interest, somewhere in there, that ballpark over a 20-year period. So it'll be $125 million in the ballpark, somewhere in that ballpark, right?
If you refer to the book as well in page 6, there's a current market estimate, and so because this is tax exempt, and because, again, we're going through this competitive process, while we will pay interest over the life of it, we expect it'll be a bunch less than the $60 million. And so on page 6, you can see kind of how that all lays in. On the left-hand side, there's a graph there. The black bars is the existing debt service, and so you can see, again, the debt cliff that basically comes in 2027, and then those yellow bars is the debt service on this new $62 million bond issue. And you can see how it layers in. The debt cliff comes on. And to your point, Councilman Coghill, I mean, it is more than, in terms of additional debt service than it is right now. That debt cliff is very, very substantial. And so even with the additional $62 million, you're far below the current debt service level with that. And also to your point, just informationally on the right-hand side there, the interest that we've estimated in terms of the current market, it's about $40 million, plus or minus.
Okay, so on the $62 million, you're guesstimating 40 so million in interest. Well, it's a lot better rate than our last bond.
It's right. It's about the same,
Really?
frankly. Yeah, last year we issued at just under 4%. We're estimating 4% currently using these rates. So the city, again, has been, it's been attractive. What you might be referring to is the affordable housing, which came at a slightly higher
Oh,
rate.
well, that is what I'm referring to.
Yeah, that is not our
So
city
your
general
bond, we
obligation.
get a better
debt.
rate than what we did for affordable housing.
Correct.
Because
That
that
is
was egregious to me. I really, it's hard for me to swallow $32 million in interest on a $30 million loan.
understood.
What percentage was that? I mean, I'm not a mathematician, but
Well,
what was that?
it's if
Seven,
it's I can't recall the interest rate, but it was north of 5% if I'm not mistaken.
Okay, well, I'm so glad to hear we're getting a better rate
Yeah.
on this bond than what we had previously, I will say. I just felt that was, and again, the debt ceiling, I know we're going to be paying a lot less debt in a few years, but if we keep running up our credit card, then we're in the same boat.
So you raise a good point, and we did want to mention to the council that we have chatted with the administration, and we do want to revisit the city's debt policy later this year. It's been since 2017 that we've taken a really hard look at and compared sections of that for either conflicts or contradictions within the debt policy. And keep in mind, that was, of course, coming out of Act 47, and we do want to take a fresh look at the debt policy and come back to City Council with recommendations as it relates to debt policy on a go-forward basis.
Good, understood. And when we talk about the previous bond that we took out, that I was referring to, the $30 million in principal, why didn't you do that? Why didn't we call you? Is that have to be done because it was specified for affordable housing that you couldn't negotiate that, or
It was
what?
the URA's bond, not the city's.
It was a URA's bond. Yeah, we're paying the bill, I know, but it was a URA's bond.
MAS Financial is the
Yeah.
city's municipal advisors that finance hires.
Sure, right,
So
right.
they work for us, not
Right,
the URA.
right,
So
So who works for the URA? Oh, we don't know who took that bond out then?
I
Well,
don't
they-
know who they.
PNC was the
PNC, I
was the
believe.
underwriter of that.
Yep.
They did hire their own municipal advisor, but that we have a conflict. We're not representing the
Understood,
URA at the same time we're
understood.
representing
Got it,
the city
I
of
get it, I
Pittsburgh.
get it. Okay, well, I think we should just always be, very, very, very present as to what our debt is going to be. I hear over and over, debt ceiling's coming down, we're going to be in good shape. Let's just borrow, but I
Well,
don't think that's the.
We have specific limitations within the debt management policy. And the other limitations actually transfer into the general fund as opposed, that relates to debt payments and expenditures related to general fund income and revenues. So with those things in place, it's not, we're limited to borrowing. We have to look at those things every year when we go to put together a capital plan and funding it, so.
So we can max out on our credit card at some point.
I'm not saying we're gonna max out, but we have parameters in place to keep us from doing it,
Right,
so.
okay. Okay, well, I appreciate it. I know this bond we have to take out in order to, move these capital projects along. I'll be in support of it today. I'm glad to hear that our interest rate is, minimal compared to the last one. So thanks for being here. I appreciate it. Let's help, Madam Chair.
Thank you. Any further questions? Councilperson Charlin, followed by Councilwoman Gross.
Thank you for being here. Last year was my first experience of doing this, so a lot of questions, and appreciate being able to walk me through that for my kind of first experience there. I don't have to ask the same questions this time about our debt issuance, but I am really interested in this negotiated sale versus the competitive sale. You said that you can't speak to why this happened before 6 years ago, or why we've been doing the negotiated sale before 6 years ago. But who started the change of idea that we should move towards this competitive sale? Whose idea was that?
So that's the municipal advisors. That's myself and Davenport who have made this recommendation. Again, we've been thinking about this for quite some time, trying to make sure we've been moved far enough away from Act 47 that we don't have we'll call it a story as part of the sale. And we've moved far enough away from Act 47, and the city's financials look to be in excellent condition to approach the competitive market. Keep in mind, we send out a notice of sale that doesn't obligate anyone to submit a bid. We're in a negotiated sale. You do choose a team. They are obligated to sign a bond purchase agreement. We just feel as though the city's in a healthy position to attempt a competitive sale, and we think there'll be good results as a result of the sale.
Gotcha. I think it's really interesting. We have to always acknowledge that there were really hard choices made far before I was on this council to make sure that we have the debt portfolio that we have now. and that we'd be able to get to this point at some point. So I'm really thankful to, to hear that. I'm interested to see what will come out of that sale. What will look different if you at the end of the process say, actually, I think this was a good idea, or maybe we should have held out for a couple years. I know we usually get notification when the bond does go out, but is that something we can make sure to highlight? This is what happened differently this year. This was good. We're going to continue doing this, or this was a little hairy. We're gonna go back to the negotiated sale for a couple years or something. Is that?
We will thank you for the question. We will most certainly provide a post-pricing booklet to City Council, and happy to come back in and explain the process and the results of that if asked to attend. But there will be a post-pricing book that would likely compare the results of the sale by way of the competitive sale versus prior negotiated sales. So we're excited to do that. We want to see how this performs compared to prior deals. So we're looking forward to being able to present that to you.
Cool. And this is not something I know, but does your agreement with us change because you're doing the competitive bid process?
Nothing changes.
Okay.
Nothing changes. This is a recommendation that we've been making. By way of making, I mean, we've been suggesting that we're looking for the right window of opportunity over the course of the past couple of years to choose a year where we can do this. And this seems to have aligned nicely with, again, far enough away from Act 47, city's financial performance, that we make a strong recommendation this year to proceed, and the administration agreed.
Okay.
And we're asking council to consider approving this as well.
Well, we pay you to be our experts and to give us good advice here. So, I hope it works out. But I'm excited to hear what you've learned. So, thank you.
Good.
Thank you. Councilwoman Gross.
Thank you, Madam Chair. It's good to see everybody here at the table. Thank you for being here. So, I'm recalling the first year I was on council and we didn't borrow, right? So we're talking back 2014. I was sworn in at the end of 2013. And the next year we didn't borrow, and the next year we didn't borrow, it feels like, right? And so and I distinctly remember my shock looking at numbers here when we were just looking at not borrowing, but how much debt service we were carrying at the time. In my recollection, we were carrying the same amount of debt service, well, actually more. But if we issue this debt service, if we vote positively on this bond and we're able to sell the bond on the market, we'll still be slightly below the debt service of 2014, and our total revenue has increased by some 30-40%. Because I remember sitting basically in the same seat saying, I'm sorry, we're paying, at the time, in 2014, something like $80 million in debt service, and our revenue that year was only something like $540 million. So yeah, we're in a much healthier position. And what I couldn't help but notice, and I apologize for being late, I was listening on the Zoom, how many times you've said, in response to the questions, you're in an excellent financial position. Do you want to elaborate on that a little bit?
Most certainly. So we see this debt, again, the city's debt profile being very comparable to its peers. We know that the city's debt profile is going to improve considerably in the next couple of years. We know that the city is going to issue debt this year, potentially, of $62 million. But as I mentioned, also pay off $55 million in debt this year, $55 million or thereabouts next year, and then drop considerably in terms of the interest, in terms of the principal amount in years 2027. So in addition to that, of course, the city, much like many cities across the country, has been a beneficiary of ARPA monies, and that, of course, has, we'll call it, pushed many cities into a higher orbit as it relates to its financial performance. The city of Pittsburgh, no different. It certainly has been a combination of additional resources and management of the operating side in terms of efficiencies and improving efficiencies over the last 3-4 years, and we'll call it a diligence around the capital and the use of capital and the capital improvement plan, I should say, and the rating agencies have recognized that performance and makes points of it in their annual review of the city's financial performance, both debt and operating.
So just to clarify, since I have the city finance director at the table, so as I recalling in 2014, it was at least 80 million. I think it was like 82 or 3 million in debt service. And then our revenue that year, again, I think was like 540 million. And I was just sick to my stomach seeing that.
I'm here to tell you because I would make those debt service payments when I was the investment officer. And when you would make the last one, which is usually the largest, what includes principal and interest in September, after you've already collected the bulk of your revenue in the earlier part of the year, when you start to worry about how you're going to make it through the rest of the year, is extremely stressful. It's definitely not like that anymore.
Right. So it'd be like, again, I know it's risky making the metaphors, right? But it's like, imagine you had credit card debt payments that were 30% of your total income. It was awful.
Yep.
So what is our projected revenue for 2025?
So for this year we actually our budget was set at 714 million. We came in under budget at about 700 million. But we actually projected less than that through the course of the year. Next year, we project to be under 700 million. So
say that again?
Under $700 million.
So, but like, is that like $1? How much, what are you saying under 700
I'm
million
going to say it's 600 and I can't remember what we budgeted. $650 million, we'll say. I can't, but way less than 700 million.
Great. Okay, so, but it's still a lot more than 540 million or so,
Absolutely.
Right? And so that's my point. And then, so for 2027, which I don't know, I always think it's funny that we've got things in front of us that the public can't see, but there's the bar chart. You can't see this. This is like, I'm looking at the Zoom. You're not gonna be able to see this, but you can see how big the bar charts are for the big tall black lines over here for the first 2 years, but then it just goes down. And so that's as if you've paid off your credit card, basically, right, for the next 2 years, because those were the debts from 20 years ago that are coming to drop off. So sometimes we use words like debt cliff and things like that, and people don't, that doesn't really communicate. Cliffs sound like bad things, but here it's a good thing. Like you paid off an entire credit card. It's gone now, right? You still just have now you have lower payments.
Not to mention that old debt sometimes wasn't necessarily level debt service either. They had different construction. Sometimes they had balloon payments. And so we definitely have policies in place now that
we're not doing that now.
From doing that, exactly.
None of those crazy debt swap things. And then the other thing that's different, but it's still hard to adjust, which is why I kind of have to say this out loud, right? It's like we didn't borrow for years, and I was there at the tail end of that where it was like, you know, we can't afford this, we can't afford that, we can't afford anything nice. But that takes its toll. So, and since I have constituents who maybe just moved to the city in the last few years and don't know this, right? We let things fall apart for decades. If you don't know what Act 47 is, that was austerity. Those were austerity budgets. We weren't even in control of our own budgets, really. And so it's effectively receivership. And those city facilities, I'm looking at the list of what this bond will pay for, right? So fire stations that you need to be operable, several of them, medic stations, parks that when you look and see the parks that are falling down, critical bridge upgrades, urgent step upgrades, flood control, flex beam guide rails and fencing, things that our citizens expect to not fall apart and fall down. And so these are the investments, right? So again, just to pursue I know bad household metaphors, you really always have to like make sure your roof is not leaking, right? And that your plumbing and electrical are good. And so these are the bones of the city that we are making sure are there. And which is why, you know, we get the tax exempt bonds instead of the taxable bonds. And I know there was a discussion earlier about why was one bond more expensive. The Housing Opportunity Fund bond was, or the Affordable Housing Bond was a taxable bond. And so those are more expensive. And so this one is a tax exempt bond, correct?
Yes.
And we get a better rate because we're paying for the fixed assets for the city to function. That's the way I think of it.
Just to answer your question, Dave was kind enough to pull up the budget, 668 million.
Fantastic. Thank you. Appreciate it. I think that's all I have, Madam Chair. Appreciate it.
Thank you. Any further discussion? Councilperson Warwick.
I won't. I just want to say that it's nice to hear the experts, and you are the experts, say that the city of Pittsburgh is in good financial health. And I really just, at council, we control the money, right? We make the decisions about, we have the final say. And I just want to, congratulate our finance team, our Office of Management and Budget, and also our Finance Committee, Councilwoman Strasburger, our City Controller, Rachel Heitzler, because this, to me, is really an outstanding example of all bodies of city government coming together, working together to get us not only out of the whole of Act 47, right, that ended in 2018, but also get us to a place where we can, as Councilwoman said, where we can start paying for nice things again, not just nice things, but also critical things, critical infrastructure and whatnot that we need. So thank you. Yeah.
First round, we're still in first round, so Councilwoman Kale Smith, and then we'll move to second round.
Thank you. I just, a few questions. I want to know, one, is it legal to do, we made sure that we're doing this all legally, correct? Okay. And then the things I want to say is, are we having any additional bonds that you know of, or are you going to be recommending any additional bonds for anything else? Nothing for the rest of the year?
Not for capital, at least, yeah.
But for anything? Housing, anything? Okay. I just want to know, because it seems that we're constantly doing this. And I want to be clear, if we spent the ARPA funds in a different way, we wouldn't be doing this now because we'd have those funds. And the other thing, so when we talk about our finances, there are other ways we could have handled this. We also don't necessarily have to give away the millions of dollars that we give away every year. So we're entering debt because we're not managing our money well, again. And it's been historically that we allocate funding and we do different things. But as we knew that this, things were starting to tighten in the budget, we should have been tightening ourselves and making people very clear to people what we could and could not afford. Because our first responsibility is to do the things we're elected to do, and those are the things like paving roads, doing capital projects, and those sorts of things. So I just want to be clear. I mean, this is not like, oh, let's give us a great star because we're doing a great job getting more debt. We're still getting debt. Thank you. Oh, and I asked you that question about the bond. Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Second round, Councilman Coghill.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Just one clarifying question. You've said twice, at least, and other members have reported, when you say we're in good financial health, the city of Pittsburgh, we are not in good financial health. We're in good financial health for the market to borrow, correct? But you're not talking about us as a city, our finances, where we're at.
We should ask your ex-wife that question.
Yeah. I will.
So we look at financials, as do the rating agencies.
Yeah, right.
Independently.
Wait, Matt, I'm just saying, I'm just clarifying that when you say Pittsburgh is in good financial health, you mean to borrow. You don't mean our present state as to what we're getting, what our revenue is and our expenditures are. You can't possibly say that.
So we do look forward. There's no question when we think about financial performance, we do look forward, and we know that the city will experience some challenges as it relates to the operating budget in the future, right? I mean, there's no question about it. That's going to be true of most communities in the country who have had the benefit of federal funding or other resources to help them along through the COVID years and bring forward, we'll call it, solve certain problems that were challenges by way of revenue streams. Okay, and expenditure issues. No doubt the city will have some structural changes that it has to consider as it relates to operating performance in the future. But the city has done well and managed well through very difficult times in the last 2 or 3 years, going back even further than that, and especially as it relates to the debt profile. Again, I
Well,
understand.
that's really what I'm trying to get to, right? You're talking about our debt and our ability to borrow. We're not talking about the city's, I just want to be clear for the public, right? That you're not saying the city's in good financial health. You're not talking about our revenue versus our
maybe
expenditures.
another way to think about it and clarify it is the city has very strong investment grade credit ratings, so that's a little more
what I'm
nuanced.
saying. Our credit
Yeah.
is good. That's
Yes.
my point, right?
Yeah.
That's what we're talking about. When you say good financial health, we're talking about our credit. We're not talking about our revenue versus expenditures as a city, as a business. You're talking about our credit rating out there as to borrowing power.
Which is typical for most larger cities, meaning that are in good financial shape. The rating agencies, you were upgraded by Fitch last year. We'll be going through that process again, and they've had positive things to say about the city's finances the last several years, and increasingly positive over the last several years.
Okay, I just want to be clear that you're not stating that we are in good financial health as a city, as a business, revenue versus expenditures. Yes, to the creditors, we may be in good financial health, especially if you put us on a curve with other cities. But I see us underwater, to be honest with you, okay?
Councilman Cockle, may I respond to that?
Who's that?
Sorry, Patrick Purnell, Chief Financial Officer.
Sure,
on Zoom,
Patrick, sure.
Feeling very ill. But for the second time in the city's history, we brought in over $700 million in revenue last year. We ended with an operating result of $45 million, excuse me, and a raw surplus of about $4 million. I mean, I think that the city is doing well financially, especially in comparison to where we had been. We're not in jeopardy of moving back in Act 47. You know, this city council across 2 administrations did approve $58 million in American Rescue Plan for capital projects, including fleet. So there's a lot that has been done to get us there. And I know, you know, yes, there are certainly things that we need to keep improving, but I do think that this, and I would attest, I think that the city is in good financial standing. I just wanted to say that, so thank you.
I understand that, Patrick. However, you're not factoring in our fleet of vehicles that we need to invest $50 million in. You're talking about the bottom line as you see it now. You're not talking about unforeseen expenditures over the next 4 or 5 years.
Yeah, that's fair.
Okay, thank you. That's it.
Thank you. Do we have any other burning questions for our financial experts here at Bond Council that are relevant to the bond and the question of this as we move through the process? Seeing none, all those in favor of Bill
The bills.
1493, please indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Abstentions? Thank you very much for joining us today. We appreciate your work on this, and we appreciate you being at the table today.
Thank you.
That moves us on to invoices. Do I have a motion on invoices?
So moved.
Second.
Discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor of invoices, please indicate by saying aye.
I see, man.
Aye. Opposed? Abstentions? Invoices are approved. That moves us on to P cards. Do I have a motion on P cards?
So moved.
Second.
Discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor of P cards, please indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Abstentions? P cards are approved. That moves us on to Public Safety and Wellness Committee chaired by Councilman Coghill.
New papers, Bill 1485, resolution authorizing the mayor and director of public safety to enter into an agreement or agreements with the Center for Employment Opportunities to clean and revitalize community spaces for a sum not to exceed $456,022 over 1 year.
Motion to approve.
Second.
Discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor of Bill 1485, please indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed?
No.
Abstentions?
Previous bill. Just for the previous bill, I wanted to register an abstention, please.
An abstention for,
The bond.
one abstention
Thank you.
for
I have
Bill.
some questions.
um,
I'll bring the information next week.
1493, so noted. Thank you.
We're not
That moves us on to Public Works and Infrastructure Committee chaired by Councilmember Warwick.
I think every director.
New
has
Papers
been
Bill 1494,
council.
resolution providing for a preemption
You don't even have it
interconnection
seen it, it's hiding
construction and maintenance agreement between CSXT and the City of Pittsburgh for construction and maintenance of highway rail grade crossing warning devices consisting of automatic flashing lights and gates at the grade crossings of Tecumseh Street and Hazelwood Avenue, and providing for the payment of the costs thereof not to exceed $0.
Motion to approve?
Second.
Discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor of Bill 1494, please indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed, abstentions? Affirmative recommendation. Bill 1495.
Bill 1495, resolution further amending resolution number 466 of 2020, which authorized the mayor and the director of the Department of Public Works to enter into a professional services agreement with Studio Zood for professional landscape architectural services for Homewood Park infrastructure upgrades by increasing the overall cost by $176,609.60 for a new city cost not to exceed $2,041,082.30 over 1 year.
Motion to approve?
Second.
Discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor of Bill 1495, please indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed, abstentions? Affirmative recommendation. Bill 1496.
Bill 1496, resolution further amending resolution number 857 of 2024, effective December 27th, 2023, as entitled Resolution Adopting and Approving the 2024 Capital Budget, the proposed 2024 Community Development Program, and the 2024 through 2029 Capital Improvement Program to decrease sport facilities by $115,170 and increase park reconstruction by $115,170.
Motion to approve?
Discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor of Bill 1496, please indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed, abstentions? Affirmative recommendation. Bill 1497.
Bill 1497, resolution amending Resolution 291 of 2024, authorizing the mayor and the director of the Department of Public Works to execute an agreement with the Pennsylvania Resources Council in order to continue providing electronic waste collection and recycling services for city residents by extending PRC's services for 1 year to December 31st, 2025, and increasing the authorized spend by $78,750 for a new total amount not to exceed $393,750.
Motion to approve?
Second.
Discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor of Bill 1497, please indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed, abstentions, affirmative recommendation. That moves us on to Human Resources Committee chaired by Councilperson Charlin.
New Papers, Bill 1484, resolution providing that the City of Pittsburgh enter into a professional services agreement and/or contracts with consultants and/or service providers for professional services in connection with civil service and MPOETC required assessment and evaluation of public safety candidates, and providing for payment of the cost thereof, cost not to exceed $95,000.
Motion to approve.
Second.
Discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor of Bill 1484, please indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed, abstentions, affirmative recommendation. That moves us on to Land Use and Economic Development Committee chaired by Councilman Wilson.
New Papers, Bill 1498, resolution amending Resolution 562 of 2024, entitled Resolution Authorizing the Mayor and the Director of the Department of City Planning to enter into an agreement or agreements with the Pennsylvania Historical and Museum Commission for the purpose of receiving grant funds in the amount of $25,000 to develop revised historic guidelines in the Mexican War Streets Historic District, The grant requires a match from the City of Pittsburgh in the amount of $12,500 for this stated purpose, for a total project cost of $37,500 to include the Manchester District.
Motion to approve.
Second.
Discussion? Seeing none?
I'm
All-
sorry.
All those in favor of Bill 1498, please indicate by saying aye. Aye. Opposed, abstentions? Affirmative recommendation. That moves us on to Intergovernmental and Educational Affairs Committee, chaired by Councilman Mosley.
Deferred papers, Bill 1234. Resolution authorizing the adoption of the Manchester Chateau Transit Revitalization Investment District Phase 1 Implementation Plan and related agreements, Council District 6.
Motion to approve.
Second.
Discussion?
You gonna bring people to?
Seeing none?
Oh,
Right here.
sorry. I think we all.
Oh,
wanna
sorry,
talk.
sorry. Councilwoman Gross.
I didn't want, I just was gonna let Councilman Lavelle go first. Thank you.
So, one, I just want to thank everyone who has worked hard to get us to this place. This has probably been about 6-7 years in the making. The actual study itself was being conducted in 2022, I believe, is when we did it. And I just want to sort of emphasize quickly what this is for those who have expressed concern that somehow the city of Pittsburgh is going to be paying for a big Ferris wheel. That's actually not indeed the case here, but rather this is sort of a value capture area for the city itself. Currently, this site brings us about $84,000 a year in taxes. Once it is built out, it'll bring us about $8 million a year in tax revenue. And the most exciting part of that is about 75% of all that revenue is actually being reinvested in the site as well as off-site in the Manchester neighborhood. So for an example, you have about $13 million that'll be done for infrastructure. But the most exciting part for me is that you have close to about $25 million that will be invested in affordable housing, both on-site and off-site in the actual neighborhood itself. Members may recall when there were Manchester residents who visited us at City Council and held up signs and spoke about the need to address affordable housing directly in the Manchester neighborhood. And the unfortunate reality is, while we're doing good by having a $10 million housing opportunity fund, and while we disagree, but I think we're doing good by having the bond issued for affordable housing, the reality is those are dollars that have been spread across the entire city. And so once you spread them across the entire city, there's not a lot left to strictly invest into one neighborhood. But this is a way to raise revenue and then redeploy that revenue back into a neighborhood that is clamoring for additional affordable housing. It's also worth noting that the Manchester plan, and in the near future, we're going to be debating inclusionary zoning, right? That is coming down our way. In this case, the Manchester plan actually calls for a one-to-one investment. So for every market rate house that gets built, they want one affordable unit that also gets built. And this is a way to help fund that effort. So in essence, we're sort of doing the 50% inclusionary zoning, right? And so this is all very exciting. I want to thank the URA for the work that they've put into this. I want to thank the Gainey administration because early on, there was sort of, you have to decide how you're going to divvy up these dollars, right? So about $1 million will also be put into fixing up the riverbank and improving that for residents across the entire city and visitors to use when they come visit the site. But you do have to sort of begin to prioritize how are you going to spend these dollars. And there was a very intentional effort within the administration to work with the community to and say that we are indeed going to invest in housing. We're also going to invest, I believe we have about $1.5 million that will go into planning work. You all may have recalled that we received a Reconnecting Communities grant from the federal government for $1.4 million to study bringing down Route 65 so that we can better physically reconnect Manchester and Chateau neighborhood. Well, another $1.5 million of this will help go to support those efforts. So long story short, this is, in my estimate, a great investment, a great use of tax dollars. We held a public hearing last week everyone who came spoke in favor of it. So I will certainly ask my colleagues to also vote in favor of it today. Thank you.
Thank you. Councilwoman Gross.
Thank you. I really appreciate that introduction because, well, frankly, I've seen my constituents refer to this project kind of like a farce, right? Oh, they make fun of like the lagoon and the Ferris wheel, and it's kind of like, why would the city has falling down bridges? The city has an affordable housing crisis. Like, why would the city support, a playground, basically? And so this is a very, very, very different picture, right? And so you're saying that since you did the study in 2022, that you've basically negotiated 50% affordable housing and possibly a freeway removal and improvements to the riverbank.
So as of right now, the plan is to have at least 20% on site as affordable housing in the actual Esplanade development itself. However, the Manchester plan in the neighborhood calls for 1-to-1. And so this will be a way to help with the gap financing of that affordable housing in the neighborhood, which in their plan is around 50%, yes.
Okay, so the commitments for the site. Okay, and again, so I always like to say a TRID is just a TIF, right? So tax increment financing means that, and it's just called something else in state code when it's near transit. So it's diverting the increased tax revenue that will come from this development. Instead of it going into our city treasury, to Jennifer Gula, who was just at the table, it gets diverted to, in this case, the URA. And the URA gets to basically borrow up front against it. So there's a kind of upfront infusion of capital. So you're saying there's a commitment already to do 20% of, how many units on site? I'm sorry. I have my packet in front of me.
300, I believe. About 300 planned units on site, of which 20% are planned to be affordable.
Thank you. But then because there will be this pot of money, that money is also going to be supporting achieving 50% affordability in the Manchester neighborhood, if I followed correctly. What are the safeguards? And again, should I bring someone else up to the table? I mean, we're doing interrogatory, and I'm making you the expert, because you are the expert. So,
the safeguards are the fact that the dollars will actually be housed at the URA. Therefore, any of the expenditure has to have the URA board approval. We do have a plan that sort of lays out how we envision spending these dollars. But as these dollars get expended, there'll be conversations with the community. The community will be able to bring forth, here's our affordable housing plan, here's the gap financing that we need assistance. So if I'm answering you correctly.
what if everything changes? I never like to leave things up to boards. That's, you've heard me say this before, right? What if things change? How do we know that commitment will be fulfilled?
So the URA board, we've already voted to adopt this plan. So in theory, yes, things can always change. But the URA board has voted to adopt this spending plan.
And it lasts for typically 20 years?
20 years.
I feel like, okay, who should I bring up? Just so we can get.
We have our director here.
Thank you, Director, appreciate it.
The whole team's here, so might as well.
Thank you all for being here. I just want to apologize in advance because I'd like to think that I do my homework better, but I am not fresh and ready for all of the details of this one. There's so much going on our agendas these days. So I'm just going to ask the basics, but if you want to introduce yourself, I appreciate it.
Sushila Nimani Sanger, Executive Director, URA.
Tom Lenk, Chief Development Officer at the URA.
James Reed, Senior Manager of Development Finance at the URA. Hi, Bailey Knapp, project manager at the URA.
Thank you. And before I start my questions, I want to tell the public that the details literally are in front of me on paper, and you also can get them from your Legistar. If you know how to go onto the city's website, the city council website, and find the details, they really are there. But we're just going to go across them verbally a little bit. I really appreciate that Councilman Lavelle opened up by saying that the footprint that where this project is going to happen in the city is currently only generating $85,000 a year in property taxes to the city. So tell us a little bit. I think I said, TRID financing means that there's going to be an increment, which means a dramatic, in this case, a very dramatic increase in property tax being paid. And so, but there will be a split. We won't get absolutely nothing, will we? And how long will it last? And then what happens? Kind of the basic
Sure.
introductory 101.
Yes, during the term of the Value Capture District, the TRID, the city and the other taxing bodies, school district and the county, will receive 25% of new incremental taxes, so that's new, plus you'll continue to receive the base taxes, current taxes today.
Great. And then the TRID term is how long?
20 years for each pledged parcel. Overall district will be 40 years. So for the TRID, this TRID statute at the state allows for a value capture for 20 years for each parcel beginning at the county reassessment. So that's when the clock starts to tick for each parcel.
And it's reassessed when it's built?
After it's built and when the county reassesses. Yeah.
Not like it reassesses the whole county, but reassesses those parcels.
That's correct.
Right.
Correct.
Individual
right.
property.
Right, because God knows we've been waiting a very long time for a countywide reassessment.
I'm not referencing a county reassessment. I'm referencing after a development occurs, the county sends an assessor out and reassesses that particular parcel.
And then you would be able to go on the county real estate portal and see that it has a different value than it has today.
That's correct.
Great. And then so there's a by voting this today, we're basically helping this project move forward, and the commitments to affordability and to the commitments to what is basically public infrastructure. And then we'll see an increase of revenue, but 20 years from now, we'll see even more, and then 40 years after that, 40 years from now, we'll see even more?
That's correct. So after each parcel is pledged, after the 20 years, year 21, the taxing bodies will receive the 100% full benefit of the taxes.
Great. And we passed at City Council a resolution several years ago. So there's an annual report for the public on like TRIDs that are expiring and LRTAs that are expiring, so you can see where those tax abatements ended, and then we've gotten an increase in value. Because sometimes it's hard for me to vote on these. I have actually voted no on some of these kinds of, especially the tax increment financing. But when there's such a dramatic difference, and I appreciate the councilman and the administration negotiating and the URA, because Councilman just mentioned you were there too, to have spent so much time with this community to figure out what they wanted and to be able to fit it into the project. It feels to me kind of really qualitatively different than some of the other TIFs and TRIDs that I've looked at. So I appreciate that. So I'm supportive today, and I think that exhausts my questions, Madam Chair.
Thank you. Councilman Wilson.
All right, thank you, Chair. And thank you all for being here, and congratulations to Council President Lavelle. I know that we have had a very interesting public comment phase regarding this development, and I'm happy that we are here finally to vote on what some people came to public comment. Basically, there was a crowd that was here in terms of opposition, and quite frankly, I was, it just didn't seem like the reality of like what they were painting, the people that were against this project, what they were painting this project to be, just wasn't the truth. And it's unfortunate that maybe some people were misled about what this project actually does. So it was great to, thank you for the meeting, director and directors. Just say Tom, I'm so hesitant to say people's first names at this table,
You're welcome.
So, thanks for the meeting. I think that in that meeting, I mentioned how this was a great example that really I was looking for in the budget hearing when I said, how is the URA thinking about increasing our revenue, since you are the Urban Redevelopment Authority, and this is that project that shows that you're working to increase the revenue for the city's coffers. But also, obviously, this project is taking 75% of that revenue and putting it back into the community. Really, really appreciate it to understand the breakdown of how this model works, and that there is some opportunity in the future because this is a transit oriented district. So can you just explain that, how there is other possibilities down the line here?
Yes, the reason we chose TRID as opposed to a discrete TIF in this particular instance is because TRID allows us to really study the corridor. And so what we're coming to you with today is a phase 1 implementation plan, and that really allows for the pledge of the Esplanade parcels, but the boundary is much larger. And that's for 2 reasons. One, to invest in off-site improvements in the Manchester Chateau neighborhoods, to really help reconnect Manchester with the rest of the neighborhood, address the dysfunction around Route 65 and that raised highway. Secondly, it allows us to really imagine the rest of the Route 65 corridor moving up the river, right? So we have the Port Authority's headquarters. We have a lot of potential growth opportunities in the overall TRID boundary. And, in 5 to 7 years, we'd like to imagine that the Esplanade project and the offsite improvements will catalyze new growth and potential tax generation offsite.
I love the idea of, like what's been mentioned here is taking, this land that's generating, very little revenue for the tax dollars for the city to collect, and then, just ballooning that into, something quite unimaginable right now, since there's just there's empty warehouse. Well, there is no. Actually, I'm familiar with, some of the things that are being moved. So they're not empty warehouses, but maybe some are. But anyway, there's a lot of land there. A lot of land there that's right on the river, and some good, some better uses. And it's good that someone had the vision to, put this all together. All the partners, collaborated with, people who had the vision. So it's great to see this. I really think this is a great example of how, I can't walk away from talking about this bill without alluding to something else that we're going to be talking about here, which is inclusionary zoning. And I think, the mayor's proposal is an unfunded inclusionary zoning bill. And, I think that the risk there is that, we don't, we slow down development, we don't get revenue from potential developments. And I know that's a topic that we'll be discussing here. But whereas, this is a funded, this is very much funded, so much so that, 75% of this revenue will be given back to the community. There are different, AMI requirements in this project. And I love this project. I'm not trying to talk bad about this project at all. This is the direction I think we should be going in terms of figuring out other ways that we could grow the city's, revenue with projects like this, and really support development so that we can. You see how this project is literally taking, from the tax revenue based on, what the developer is going to build, and what, this whole TRID concept of pulling the money in and building this affordable housing on site and everything that's going to happen, building it off site. This is all, I would say it's taxpayer funded. It's all taxpayer funded. So that is not the bill that we're going to be discussing that comes to council. And so we should just really think about that. I mean, we're all excited about this project. Maybe we all are, but I am. And we literally have the opportunity to take revenue and then do something even better with it. So we could continue to do that with development all across the city. I mean, there's a project I visited recently where we're getting $1 million in tax revenue, no public dollars, no requirements from, the developer other than like stormwater code and everything. And, banks funded it. They got some pretty large banks to fund it. And, that's $1 million that we put towards our fleet. We can put towards more affordable housing if we want. We can transfer that to the RA and do all of that. There's a lot of different options here. So I think that's a pretty big thing to think about when we look at, the future of the city and how we should be thinking about creative ways to increase revenue. We recently took a preliminary vote on the bond here, and there was a big discussion about how we're financially healthy. I mean, what we're good at is paying the bills, similar to, you could say, I'm pretty bad at analogies, but I'm gonna try one here. I mean, you could pay your credit card bill, but if you're not paying for the cancer treatment, then you're not going to last very long. It's not going to look as good. So you might want to, be able to do both. Pay off the credit card sooner and also pay for your medical bills. So I think that's something that we're going through in terms of the fleet, in terms of even city steps that need repaired, landslides we missed out on. $2 million. If we had $2 million to spend on a 20% match, we would have been able to fix 2 major landslides in the city of Pittsburgh. We missed out on that. So there are definitely things we miss out on. I mean, I'm sure we're not alone here. All the other cities in the U.S. are probably going through similar things. But that is a discussion to think about, because when we think about increasing revenue, I think about projects like this, and I think about the opportunities and for people in the city of Pittsburgh, what we can do with that revenue that's been generated from that. When we haven't even talked about the increase in income tax revenue. Maybe you alluded to it, Council President, but could you allude to that? Do we know some figures on income tax? We were talking about real estate tax. So what about the income tax?
Yeah,
go ahead.
I can jump in just a little bit. So this project had an economic impact study done by a third party. And one of the things to note is that the estimate for ongoing tax revenue is at completion of the projects is about $20 million on an annual basis, with $8 million of that being from the taxes that would be diverted. So the property taxes, parking taxes, and easement taxes, and then $12 million from the remaining taxes that includes income taxes. But I don't have, a finer point on the income tax number.
And how many jobs will be created with this project?
4,000 permanent jobs and 9,300 union construction jobs.
Wow. It's incredible. Thank you for coming to the table and explaining this, and congratulations to Council President Lavelle and the Manchester Citizens Corporation, MCC, and to the developer and to the URA and all the other partners that made this happen. So appreciate what you're doing here. Thank you.
Thank you. We'll just go down the table. So Councilman Coghill first.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I first want to say, I think you make an excellent point, Councilman Wilson, where this is where affordable housing works best. I've made my views very clear as to how I feel about it in my district and the effects it will have. But this, I can't help but to support this. I love the idea. I really do. I love the idea. And I want to congratulate the people from Manchester, too. They came down here, and they came in force, and they were polite but stern, And I want to congratulate you, Council President Lavelle, because I did worry about this project when they were down here on a regular basis. But you, being a diplomat you are, you worked it out, and it seems like everything's a green light and it's a go. And I'm very, very happy as to. Not to mention the transformation of our city, right? I mean, this is a tourist attraction. It's bringing tourist dollars. We talked about the other taxes that are involved. So it's good all the way around. But just let me make sure I'm clear on this. So for 20 years, 75% of the generated taxes, property taxes, are going to go into Manchester, the neighborhood, for a match for affordable housing.
It'll go in for a variety of
Right.
uses, infrastructure, road improvements, Beaver two-way, but also affordable housing. Yes.
Got it. Okay. So we're talking. I mean, if obviously these numbers will change after an assessment's done, and just with inflation. But as it is now, you're projecting $8 million annually from just a property tax alone. So that's about $160 million over a 20-year period that will go into the Manchester neighborhood, which, okay.
Couple things to clarify. You're on the right track for sure. Just want to clarify. So in addition to real estate taxes being diverted during the term of the TRID, we're also proposing to divert parking and amusement. In addition to property taxes from the county and the school district. And then as far as the off-site improvements, I believe the calculation is for every issuance related to new development coming out of the ground, we would do a borrowing. And for each borrowing, I believe it's 20% would be used for off-site improvements related to infrastructure and affordable housing. The issuance would also fund on-site infrastructure and affordable housing for the Esplanade site. Does that make sense?
Yes, it does.
Okay.
So it covers the neighborhood of Manchester and the site where the development is happening.
Correct.
Right, good.
That's right.
Okay. Thank you.
Okay.
It's just 75-25. So,
Sorry.
but yeah.
75% to 25.
Right. So sorry, just to be a little bit more specific. So the 75% on the Manchester side, so that would include, infrastructure improvements that are necessary to unlock the development site, Beaver Ave two-way conversion, the river trail, things of that nature, as well as affordable housing on the Esplanade site. And then the remaining 25% from each of those borrowings would then be going to projects within the Manchester neighborhood, and that includes that affordable housing fund for the neighborhood.
Yeah. No, I'm excited about it. I really am. I think this is transformative to our city, much like the CAP project that I know Councilman Lavelle was working on. It's, helps, where the riverfront's basically severed from the neighborhood there. So talk to me about that, 65. Are we going to invest? Are we going to raise it, lower it, or how are we going to make access from the Manchester neighborhood into the riverfront?
There is a federal planning grant that has been awarded, and that planning process is underway right now. And so after that planning process is done, then we will know more about the overall recommendations for how to deal with through 65 and how.
Yeah, so the residuals of this are none of it's factored into reconforming Route 65. Maybe there's matching funds in the future that we could tap into these generated taxes that we're getting from this project, but
yeah, that's definitely the long game
Right.
here. So as you know, TIF and TRID are a really good local match to leverage additional state and federal money. And so depending on the recommendations that come out of the Reconnecting Communities grant and planning process, we will need to seek state and federal support to solve the issues related to the
that's
dividing line
big,
of Route
big
65.
money there.
It is.
I mean, Route 65 is a big road, and the construction costs there would be astronomical. So we plan to, wherever that study leads us, to connect the Manchester neighborhood, because I think that's essential in this. I really do, to the riverfront. whichever way we do it, we're going to count on hopefully federal monies there, and maybe some money. But we could use that generated tax money that we're going to be produced. Is that going to be? Do you plan to try to do that in conjunction with the actual development, or is that something like 65 we address after the development? Or we could no set plan. Is that right?
It would all happen on a parallel path.
Yeah. Right. Okay. Good. Yeah. Right. Right. Okay. I feel like this is a great example as to what the URA does, generating income, even though. And I love the idea it's going into Manchester. I think it's well needed. We've heard their voices. They were down here. And again, I want to congratulate Councilman Lavelle for brokering between the neighborhood and the project itself. So, yeah, I'm in full support. So thanks for the briefing the other day, by the way. I really appreciate it. Sure. Yep. Well, thanks, Tom.
Thank you. Councilperson Charlin.
Thank you. So, again, I think we've talked a lot about this. I really appreciate you sitting me down early and walking me through this. It's very important to bring up a point that Council President Lavelle brought up, because at first I was like, I'm not sure I can justify spending tax dollars on a Ferris wheel. But nothing from the TRID goes into the Ferris wheel there. I mean, I could probably find my way to like supporting it, but it's not. We are not paying for the Ferris wheel.
They're not paying. The taxpayers are not paying for it.
Yeah. I feel like that needs to be repeated over and over again.
Yeah.
So I'm glad to understand that from the get-go here. I'm excited about everything about the TRID is exciting to me, and this is a way that we can fund things that we want. It is drastically different from an unfunded affordability mandate. This is we are funding the things that we want to see there in a very unique vessel that unlike a TIF, it doesn't have to all be contiguous. We can fund in different areas. I can't speak highly enough about this idea. I do have one, really just one kind of question on this, and I'm not sure if this is for Council President or for you. Is this the only approval that we need to make? Is this vote the only approval for the TRID? I'm sure there's be other things for the actual built site and perhaps zoning or something like that. Is this the only thing we do to create this funding vehicle?
From the city, yeah. This is your
Okay.
approval.
Okay, so we do this, obviously the building and zoning and whatever needs
Right,
to
the
come.
zoning and permitting, planning.
Yeah.
There's a variety of entitlement processes. The URA board, as Council President mentioned, would have votes as it relates to each vertical development as they take down URA land on an as-going basis. It'll be those votes. But from this table, this is the vote. Yeah.
So
Yeah.
we create the vehicle today.
Right.
That's fantastic. Council President, I have to applaud you. You don't have an easy development in your district. Everything is on hard mode over there. Yes. So very much appreciate your ability to stick through on a project here. And this is awesome. Happy to support today. Thank you.
Just to your question, yes, this is the only vote this body has to make to create the TRID. We will need the county to also vote and the school district to also vote. And I feel confident about getting their support, but those are the other two bodies that will have to vote.
We're engaged in those processes, but yeah, all three taxing bodies have to agree.
Gotcha. Okay.
Council Member Warwick.
Also just a congratulations. I mean, here we have a development that this investment in the city is increasing jobs, is going to increase our tax base, also includes affordable housing, meeting community needs, and also creating some nice amenities for everybody across the city of Pittsburgh. So I think that's really great. To me, this is an example of various bodies of government, Councilman Lavelle, the administration, yourselves all working, and the developers all working together to, not just do development like whatever it is, but actually, doing development that meets the needs of Pittsburghers, right? Pittsburghers who are here and new Pittsburghers who are coming. So that's very exciting. Can you explain to me a little bit, just very briefly, just sort of this, because it's the transit, I'm really interested in that too. Like, so just the concept of a TRID, like what that is for a development, just sort of as a proposal.
Yeah, the purpose of TRID is to really unlock the placemaking potential and walkability and transit access for an area. And so there are a lot of existing transit amenities within this boundary.
Okay.
The Allegheny Station T-stop, there are significant bus stops, but really it's reimagining what can occur on the Route 65 corridor. Can it be a multimodal corridor?
Right.
Can we see Juniata Underpass and unlock walkability for Manchester residents to access the riverfront? Because currently, Manchester is not a riverfront community.
Right.
But if we can unlock more modes and allow for this district to be walkable, then we are achieving a big part of the TRID goals.
And is there like state funding and such for that, or how is that all?
The TRID is a state statute that allows for the value capture district. It requires a TRID planning study.
Okay.
And so this phase one implementation plan is built upon the TRID planning study that had a number of recommendations around walkability and increasing transit.
Okay, wow, this,
Yeah.
I don't know, Councilman, I'm feeling a little jealous. All we got was the Mon-Oakland connector, but this seems like a very innovative way to address transit, overall. So anyway.
It is really interesting.
Yeah.
So if you'd like, we can meet with you separately and talk through and share the planning studies that have been done throughout the city.
Yeah.
So
Okay.
we did one in the South Hills neighborhoods with South Hills Junction, Beachview, East Liberty. Did we do one? We did one in Homewood as well. There. So and then this, and I think they're all very unique to the neighborhood.
Yeah.
They really address neighborhood needs, and they look to the future, not just like one development.
Not just like
Yeah.
one little
Right.
thing. Yeah, one
Right.
little A to B
Yeah.
situation.
Which is why we prefer it over TIF when we can use it.
Okay, well, that's interesting. Maybe we'll talk offline later on.
Yeah,
I
happy
appreciate
to.
it. Thank you.
Any further discussion?
Well, I just want to say something. I just want to congratulate Council President Lavelle on his work with this, because I do know you've been working on it a lot. I sat in on one of your community meetings, and I was impressed with how you handled everything. So it's challenging because people nowadays have so many different definite opinions. It's hard to get people to sway one way or the other, but you've done a great job in doing that, and I want to thank you all for your work that you do across the city. And I will say that this now borders District 2, because we now go over to the north side somewhere, but Councilman Wilson's going to show me where. If we were redistricted, and now we have part of this, so. But not this development, right? You kept all that, right? So he can have the meetings. Thank you.
Thank you. Well, Councilwoman, I want to congratulate you on this TRID.
Yeah.
It does go down.
But I
Well, I will
really
say,
want to.
it's the closest we're getting to development in District 2, so thank you. But
I do really want to also congratulate the council president on this TRID and everyone who's worked on this. I just came into city council right as the East Liberty TRID was kind of finishing up, and I've seen it play out over the course of the last decade and continue to build or help to leverage the affordable housing near there. So congratulations. I know it's a lot of work that's put into this, and look forward to taking a vote momentarily unless there are any other comments from members. Okay. All those in favor of Bill 1234, please indicate by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? Abstentions? Affirmative recommendation.
is that somebody else saying that?
New papers, Bill 1486.
Bill 1486, resolution authorizing the issuance of a warrant payable in favor of the United States Conference of Mayors for one-year membership dues in an amount not to exceed $19,840.
Motion to approve.
Second.
Discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor of Bill 1486, please indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, abstentions, Affirmative recommendation. Bill 1487.
Bill 1487, resolution authorizing the issuance of a warrant payable in favor of Allegheny League of Municipalities for one-year membership dues in an amount not to exceed $9,000.
Motion to approve.
Second.
Discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor of Bill 1487, please indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, abstentions? Affirmative recommendation. Bill 1488.
Bill 1488, ordinance authorizing the City of Pittsburgh to enter into an intergovernmental cooperation agreement with the Borough of Wilkinsburg for providing fire and emergency management services to the borough pursuant to the General Local Government Code and the Emergency Management Services Code at a total cost not to exceed $11,933,932 over 5 years.
Motion to approve.
Second.
Discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor of Bill 1488, please indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Abstentions? Affirmative recommendation. Having exhausted our standing committees meeting agenda, we have some meeting announcements. Next week, council will hold their regular meeting on Tuesday, February 25th, and standing committees meeting on Wednesday, February 26th, both at 10 a.m. To register to speak at these meetings and hearings, please fill out the sign-up form on the council meeting webpage by the deadline. You may also call the clerk's office at 412-255-2138. Also, next Tuesday, February 25th at 2:30 p.m., council will hold a cablecast post-agenda discussion on human trafficking in Pittsburgh. Is there anything from members? Seeing none, I'll take a motion to approve the minutes and adjourn the meeting.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Meeting is adjourned.